So I just rewatched the first Terrifier, and honestly, I think I'm even more impressed and maybe slightly more traumatized than when I first watched it. I knew Terrifier would be the perfect film to kick off my new horror review series. There's just something about it that sticks with me long after the credits roll. Now, I'll admit I was a bit behind the curve on Terrifier. I didn't watch the first one when it first came out, mainly because I thought it'd be just another clown-based slasher film and perhaps even a little bit derivative of Stephen King's It. And man, was I wrong. Instead, I ended up seeing the first one in a double bill with Terrifier 2 at the cinema back in 2022, and I gotta say, I was blown away and kind of frustrated with myself for not watching it sooner. Idiot. When it comes to the horror genre, the slasher subgenre has always been a bit hit or miss for me. But after watching this film as well as some others over the past few years, I think my opinion's starting to change. If you're into gore and disturbing imagery, Terrifier is definitely for you, but even if you're more into psychological scares, this one might just change your mind. The plot of Terrifier isn't exactly groundbreaking, but its simplicity is what makes it so captivating. Terrifier is pretty straightforward in terms of plot, but it's exactly that simplicity that makes it so chilling. It all kicks off on Halloween night when two women, Tara and Dawn, head out for a fun, innocent evening, only to cross paths with Art the Clown, a deranged figure who seems to take pleasure in tormenting and murdering anyone who gets in his way. What starts as an unsettling encounter quickly escalates as Art traps the women in an abandoned building, turning the night into a deadly game of cat and mouse. With no real explanation for why he's doing what he's doing, Art's unpredictable and sadistic behaviour ramps up the tension, leaving you with this overwhelming sense of dread. There are no twists or convoluted plots here, just a relentless pursuit by a killer who's as terrifying as he is silent. And that's what makes Terrifier such a shocking ride. It's horror stripped down to its raw, unfiltered core. While Terrifier doesn't reinvent the slasher genre, it taps into a primal fear we all share, the idea of being hunted by someone completely unpredictable. Art the Clown doesn't just stalk his victims, he plays with them, terrorising them in the most twisted ways. It doesn't take long before you meet Art, and honestly, I have no idea why anyone would stick around after seeing him. But I'm glad they do, because we get some truly memorable kills. One of the most unforgettable kills has Dawn suspended upside down from the ceiling, and let me tell you, what happens next is truly shocking. She's sawn in half vertically from her vag all the way down to her head. It's not just shocking, it's artfully disgusting, in a way that makes you appreciate the incredible work behind the effects. Never thought that would be a sentence, I would say. I think what's more impressive about this is the actual risk the actor put herself into. Now, bear in mind this film only had a $35k budget, so the majority of the cast performed their own stunts. But this was by far the most dangerous scene to film, and Catherine Corcoran, who played Dawn, couldn't use a rig whilst being hung upside down, leading to her being unable to even out her weight distribution. For safety, filming was in 40-second increments, and the crew placed a platform beneath her between takes. Scary stuff on and off the screen. I must admit, I'm also quite partial to a head stamping scene, and I don't think I've seen one this memorable since Ryan Gosling's elevator scene in Drive. Poor Mike the Exterminator was just trying to do his job, and after being battered with a hammer, manages to come around and try and help Victoria fight Art. However, it doesn't end well for him, with Art squashing his head with his big old clown shoes. These are just a few examples of practical effects in this movie, and they really are something else. They've become a hallmark of this franchise. It's incredible what Damien Leone and his team pulled off with such a small budget. It really shows that a $35,000 budget doesn't mean a film can't make a big impact. When you're working with a budget this small, you need to put the money where it matters, and that's in the kills. Fans of horror films want that visceral experience, and this film delivers. It seems over and over again, and of course, Art the Clown wouldn't be nearly as terrifying without David Howard Thornton's performance. His ability to convey so much without saying a single word is remarkable. The journey of art started back in 2008 with a short film by Leone called The Ninth Circle. In that, art is played by Mike Giannelli, who's also art in other short films by Leone. However, it's fair to say that the character has come a long way since then, and credit goes to David Howard Thornton's portrayal of the demon clown. He is captivating on screen, quickly shifting from cheeky and at times funny art to a truly terrifying protagonist. There's only one small critique I have with Terrifier, and that's the woman with the doll. Honestly, I still don't see what she adds to the film, other than giving Art another character to torment. I get that Art is all about creating chaos and playing mind games with his victims, but this character, who I'm still not entirely sure I'm supposed to care about, feels like more of a plot device than an actual character. Now, I'm not saying her role isn't memorable, because it certainly is, in a grotesque sense. Art does have a certain way of making his victims unforgettable, even if it's not for the right reasons. But in terms of the story, I just feel like her scenes could have been trimmed down or given more purpose. She's not fleshed out enough to really have an impact, and her presence mostly served to add more gore, which in a film like this can sometimes feel like it's just filling space. It's a minor gripe though, and I can see why her inclusion works for some viewers. Maybe it's a case of wanting to show Art's unpredictability. He's not just picking victims with any real connection to the plot. But I still think that out of all the film's twisted moments, this subplot could have been a bit more meaningful rather than just a way to add another kill to the body count. By now, Terrifier has set the bar for practical horror effects, and Damien Leone and his team now face the tough task of outdoing themselves to keep shocking audiences. As fans, that's something we can all appreciate. Now, editing this video has been tough because I'd love to show you some of the insane special effects, but for obvious reasons I can't. But trust me when I say they are truly shocking. The film sets the tone in the first 5 minutes with a brutal scene that makes you realise exactly what you're in for. Even though it took me 6 years to finally sit down and watch Terrifier, I'm so glad I did. Honestly, I absolutely love it, and I find myself going back to it again and again. There's something about it that keeps drawing me in. Maybe it's the shocking, relentless energy, or how it taps into that primal fear of being hunted. What really stands out to me though is how much this film feels like a silent movie. The visuals do most of the talking, especially when it comes to Art the Clown. He doesn't speak a word, yet his expressions, his movements, and the way he interacts with his victims tell you everything you need to know about how dangerous and unhinged he is. It's a rare thing to see a slasher villain who can communicate so much without ever saying a word, and it just makes the whole experience even more unsettling and memorable. So if you're into really graphic horror or just want to see something that will stick with you for days, check it out. But if you can't handle a ton of blood and violence, maybe skip it. What did you think of Terrifier? Is there any other first installment in a horror franchise that's as gory as this one? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more horror movie reviews.